Hello, and welcome to episode 182 of Reanimated Zombie Podcast. My name's Stuart, and I'm your West Coast host. And our East Coast host is H.A. Conrad. What's up?
Hello.
Hi.
We're going to talk a little bit about the next episode of Fear the Walking Dead Season 4. This is episode 15 in the season. There's one more left. And ahead of that, we got a couple little news tidbits, but not a lot. Though I'm expecting we'll probably get a few more as we're going into Halloween season. So, you know, usually there's some fun stuff that pops up. But did you want to talk about the Twitter status you found?
Yeah, so I found, I think it was some website that I follow, maybe IO9 or Comic Books or one of those, pointed out that the Walking Dead AMC official Twitter feed has either knowingly, unknowingly, in jest, maybe seriously, revealed how long it's been since the beginning of the Zombocalypse. 2 episodes ago, last episode, I was saying it's year 2, maybe going into year 3. Turns out I wasn't that far off.
Yep.
So this is a tweet from September 11th, where there's a picture of Rick Grimes from the pilot, and then there's a picture of Rick Grimes in the middle of the Savior's, season 8, I guess. And so, actually, quite a big difference in the appearance of Andrew Lincoln. It looks like he has aged significantly in real life, as well as on screen. And they say day 0 of the apocalypse versus day 632.
I don't know. I thought that was interesting that they decided to do that, but they always play these funny little things, and then they'll come back and be like, just kidding. So, I don't know.
Blue meth. Yeah, So we don't know for sure if that's true. I also like the first response is that you're telling me that Carl's aged 2 years?
Right.
Which,
that is pretty funny.
He was, 8 when he started on the show, or maybe 11, and now he's 23 or something. I don't even know how old he is, but he just graduated from high school 2 years ago, so that's not right. However, it's pretty bananas. What are you supposed to do with child actors in a show that takes 2 years, but it takes 8 years to tell the story of what's happening in 2 years? So anyway, 632 days into the apocalypse, and we still have benevolent truckers who don't know how to defend themselves. It just underscores the point that I was making last episode.
Definitely. And, we'll talk about the next piece of news before we jump into it. But yeah, this next episode, I have a lot of feelings about, just about some of the decisions that these people make. Oh, goodness. But in any case, before we get into that, October 1st is the 50th anniversary of Night of the Living Dead, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. 50 years, it's still going strong in terms of its fan following. And we just saw a little bit of a tidbit in terms of the budget for this, which was $114,000, which at that time was not small, but smaller in terms of that kind of a production, obviously. So I just think it's kind of crazy. Of course, in Pittsburgh, they are coming up with a lot of stuff to celebrate the 50th anniversary, and I'm sure that there's going to be, zombie walks and all the like of that. Hopefully people walking around malls and other stuff sort of blending in to the different Night of the Living Dead franchise films. But again, when I hear that budget, I'm just kind of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that this made it this far. I don't know that you can point to a ton of films that are at this level still. In terms of people knowing it and having the following that were made for that kind of budget.
Made it to that cult status. I mean, $114,000 in the late 60s is a hell of a lot more than the $50,000 that the Battery cost to make in 2015. But yeah, obviously Night of the Living Dead, I assume, is going to have a more lasting legacy than the Battery, for better or for worse. Because it was the first of its kind. Not really. There were other things out there too doing similar stuff, but it was the first to capture the attention of sick people across the country like H.A. and Stewart.
Well, it's also just in terms of the horror type of films and things like that. I mean, I don't think that people took it seriously then, but as it grew and all that stuff and attracted sickos like us, certainly. I was trying to see it, like, sort of different films that were at the same time to see if there was, like, we could find, like, a comparable budget.
Yeah, so, like, I don't know, what's...
Let's see, Rosemary's, if you want to talk about horror films, Rosemary's Baby. So how much was that budget?
$3.2 million.
Wow. That's crazy.
That is bananas.
Planet of the Apes, right?
1968, Planet of the Apes, $5.8 million. But there's a lot of prosthetics, and that's, like, you can see the cost of that film. Also in the size of the
True,
cast.
but if you're looking at...
And Charlton Heston.
Right. But if you're looking at, those kinds of films with that kind of an audience, because that's kind of the same group of people that might be watching that, that's crazy when you compare it. And, not taking away from Rosemary's Baby or Planet of the Apes, because they obviously have their own followings too, but look at the difference in budget. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well done, Romero.
You done good. Are you going to do anything to observe the 50th anniversary tomorrow?
I was thinking about walking, showing up at work dressed as Barbara, but I don't know that would, I think that might go over people's heads.
If people start yelling at you, they're coming to get you, Barbara, then that would make it worth.
Awesome.
That would make it worthwhile. But the odds of that happening are like 150,000 to 1.
I'm still considering it, though. Who knows? I'll see if the mood strikes me.
Well, if you do, Instagram or pics, or something.
Sure. How about you?
Put it on Snapchat. No, hell no. I don't have time for this kind of shenanigans. Maybe I'll just do a screening for the kids.
Or we should dress the kids up as zombies. That's always fun.
That's kind of all there is to say about the anniversary, other than the fact that you can't underemphasize how important that film was, especially for us who have recorded 181 in our under 182nd, and that's not counting all the lost episodes of podcasts about zombies, which were basically born out of Romero. So we're eternally grateful.
Correct. But that kind of wraps up our news. See, it's a very light week. But
yes,
again,
this is going to be a super short podcast.
We're definitely anticipating some Halloween news in the future. So in any case, let's hop into our review, which is I Lose People. And this
Ellipsis. Yeah. So sorry. Yeah. It's directed by David Barrett, written by Kalinda Vazquez. And actually, they had an uptick in their audience, back up above 2 million mark, which I think has not happened since when the was premiere? That? The premiere of this season. That's crazy. The What's Your Story episode with Althea. Wow. That's kind of surprising, don't you think? Or I mean, there's always a little bump when at the premieres and the finales, and I don't understand who are those extra people who are like, you know what, I'm gonna watch it now. I'm only gonna watch the premieres and the finales because I don't like the middle.
It could also be, again, I don't know what this takes into account, but I think a lot of people do they might watch the premiere and then they'll save up episodes and binge watch them, and I don't think that this is capturing them. And so I think that that's what happens, is that they get towards the end, they're like, okay, well, I just want to watch it all at once. And I kind of think that's what's happening.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Well, and actually, I'm looking at the wrong numbers. So those are the DVR viewers. This season was above 2 million until the mid-season finale, basically. But this side of the mid-season, it did not get above 2 million until just last week.
Yep.
But it's whatever reason people are tuning back in. Not in insane numbers, but still, it's a good sign. This episode kind of brings the gang back together, and does some pretty annoying story stuff, which you've already hinted at that you're ready to pile drive.
Yep.
Obviously, this is a double header about Morgan's greatest fear. His I lose people, then I lose myself. His constant battle with becoming a crazy filthy woman person. So really, this whole season has been about that in a way, other than gutting the original cast of the spinoff. So there are a few different stories that get threaded together. We left off last episode with Charlie and Alicia finding Strand and Dory on the other side of that body of water. And so that's kind of where it picks up. We do have Charlie wearing the hat, but thankfully it only lasts for 2 or 3 scenes.
Yep, and I would like to point out that I think they ran out of money to show the alligator
a second time.
That doesn't make an appearance, and I kept waiting for it because they kept like kind of doing this weird thing with Charlie by the edge of the water. So I thought they were going to go really dark here, and they didn't. But I kept having these moments where I'm like, where the heck is that alligator?
Like a Crocodile Dundee scene.
Yeah.
You know, when she's filling her canteen. You remember that? That was a great scene.
That was a good scene.
Anyway.
Well, but so, and it's so funny because they do make reference to it, but they still don't show it. But, you know, some of the things, and I do think that one of the things that this season has done in a good way, but not always in a way that I think makes sense, is bring back some of the lightheartedness and to balance out the darkness and the dreariness. I feel like they have gone a little bit over the top. This is definitely like a kumbaya episode in a way to me that doesn't make sense. And the first thing in this whole episode that really troubles me is the fact that John Dory, who has been so, optimistic, convinced he's going to see June, he has this idea of kismet, of fate, and in one sort of very small instance has lost all that faith. But Strand has suddenly regained it, and I just think that it doesn't feel true to me, and it doesn't feel true to these characters.
Maybe Strand is seeing that he's been a big downer on Dory, and now he regrets it. Like, that's one possible way. He's like, oh man.
But to me, this is not. To me, this is a failure of the writing, and I think there's ways to walk that line without being completely flipping their characters in the way that they did. Because suddenly you've got Strand, like, honestly, positively sunny, and no matter how optimistic Strand is, he is never all the way sunny. You know what I mean? So this was a little bit crazy. I also don't think that John Dory would be this down having just seen Charlie. Like, this is something that I think he would grab onto a little bit more quickly than he does, but he's still like, oh, we'll never get rescued, they'll never be able to find a way out. And it's like, well, man, like I don't know. So this bothered me a bit.
I really liked when Strand poured whiskey on his bullet wound.
That was actually very Strand-like, and that was pretty funny.
He's like, oh, this is gonna get infected, oh, this is bad. And then
Strand's just like, yeah.
That was great.
That's actually good. And I really like Strand, and I like seeing him a little bit more. I like positive Strand better, obviously, but
sure,
he's also going to be, kind of cynical and cynical Strand in some ways, as always. But in any case, then we've got Charlie and Alicia looking for a way to get across, and then randomly run into Martha. And, like, how did she find them? Give me a break. There's just no, to me...
She was looking at maps of where places flood, because she heard Alicia say they're cut off by the floodwater, but she doesn't find them next to the floodwater. She finds them in a town nearby, but still, yeah, it's absurd. And they don't hear her driving.
Wounded.
She's badly wounded.
She's wounded, and
driving.
They don't hear the big SWAT truck. Give me a break.
Yeah.
And, like, with the loss of blood, there's just no way she would be mobile.
No, she's not mobile for long.
Agreed.
But she serves herself up on a platter for the cast, and maybe it would have been too difficult to find another, like, baddie to finish off the season. But it's so frustrating as an audience member to see how Alicia decides to deal with this. Like, she's gone from wanting to kill everybody and being too bloodthirsty to now being like, oh, you know what? We're just going to zip tie the murderer, the serial murderer, and not put her down like the rabid dog that she is. It's like the lessons that the people learn on this show are never in the order that I want them. and they
Right.
so often seem to make these decisions that are just so dumb that it's really
Well,
frustrating.
what I find frustrating is that it's all like they keep linking this back, and it's just too simplistic. It's not as easy as this. I actually am okay with where she is now ended up with Charlie,
Yeah, that's good.
but I'm feeling a bit better about that. But I still think it's a little weird. But what else are you gonna do? But this whole thing where she repeatedly gets on the walkie-talkie and says, "Morgan, you told me to help people, and I'm helping people,"
Yeah.
and that's what everybody's theme is here.
Yeah.
And it just seems a little bit ridiculous, and
Yeah. Then
also, and
these
it just not in line with what these characters do.
But these
And
showrunners have been doing this all season with their weird little like finishing each other's sentences thing that Luciana and Strand and Alicia used to do when they were telling their
yeah,
stories around the camera. And in last episode, also, often they were doing that in like a morose way, but it still creates this like, oh, we're all finishing each other's sandwiches sort of thing
yep,
motif, which is super frustrating. And and they do it again obviously when, like you're saying, oh, you told us to help and so we're all helping and we're all going to take turns on the walkie talkie to it's so group hug and so
yeah,
over
it's gross.
the top that it really separates you from the immersions that I think these
Yep.
showrunners have a don't have a good handle on how to create like positivity without going over the top.
Right. And I mean, there's ways to do that, and there's ways to do little bits of comic relief and things like that without losing the integrity of the storylines. And I don't feel like they've done that here. This was one big saccharine, honey, like I was going to stick to the screen at certain parts of this. And again, I don't believe it. It's almost like you're watching some strange dream that the characters are having. I don't know. It doesn't seem to be in line with what we have seen at all. And I know that they came on board with the idea of shaking up the show, but I don't know that this was the way that they should have gone. And then there's the foreboding of Martha during the entire thing, just her weird obsession about Morgan and about them being sorry and all this other stuff.
And they heal her. They patch her up. Like, how does anybody think it's a good idea to keep her alive? Why does anybody think that she's redeemable? Is that the idea that she'll be redeemed because they're going to show her the power of help?
Well, I think they're trying to draw parallels, obviously, to Morgan. And that's kind of, he never did the quite the stuff that she was doing, but he was out of his skull for a very long time.
Yep. And Eastman
So
just
there's
locked him up and fed him philosophy, and he became a good person again. But yeah, maybe. But they don't.
you know
Yeah.
but they don't go anywhere with it. At least they have not at this point, other than to have her being this sort of weird, you know. And I kind of feel like obviously something must happen in the next episode that's going to bring her predictions, even if it's her who brings it down upon them. It's going to bring her predictions full circle. But I don't know that we see her redeemed. I feel like we get to see their kindness and aid to her fed back to them in the form of death and destruction, because she's just off her rocker. But anyway, the other thing that, I mean, we've got the group and we have the varying stories here. So we've got, of course, the heroes' entrance of Alicia and Charlie using the SWAT truck, which is amphibious, to get across to Strand and
It's
Dory.
actually not an amphibious vehicle. What they
It is
do
not, but
is it's
they
tall enough that the exhaust wouldn't they wouldn't
Right.
swamp the engine. However, they have no idea
How
that's
deep that
passable.
is.
And so, of all the bad ideas, like I feel like every how we have fires here in the summer. Well, in the winter we have a lot of rain where I live, and flooding comes right after that. And every year, people try to drive through stretches of road because they're like, I can get through that in my
They
Mercedes
get
or whatever.
stuck. Yep.
And then they get swamped, flooded, have to be evacuated, pulled out by the fire department. And I'm like, okay, granted, you're in an MRAP and it's got like, I don't know, 6 feet of clearance, but you have no idea how deep that is.
Right.
And it's not even a road that they're driving through. They're just driving on
Swamp.
earth. Yeah. And yeah, man, part of me was really hoping that they would get stuck and be like, well, now we all have to be rescued from the
Not
alligator.
in this episode though.
It was a bummer.
And then, back at the ranch, i.e. the hospital, we've also got our group on the roof just talking about, oh, it's all Morgan's fault, Jim being sad
That's
about the
just
bite.
Jim. That's just Jim.
Well, and also, you know what? It wasn't Morgan's fault. Jim, you need to, take care of yourself, dude.
Yeah.
Morgan was holding off 4 or 5 walkers. You had one to contend with. Again, I still don't know how it got that mystery bite in, since there was no scene where that seemed possible through his many layers of clothing.
Back, yeah.
But
Yeah.
in any case, they have this whole thing going on between all of them, and the sort of the theme that keeps running through this: Morgan thinks it's his fault. Everybody tells him it's not. They have to find a way down, but it keeps going around and around in circles like this. And then suddenly they can get down to Althea in the generator room, which is miraculously cleared of walkers. Like, this whole thing drives me crazy.
Yeah. Well, at least that one hallway is
Right.
miraculously cleared of walkers thanks to a roof collapse or a ceiling collapse. And that's also been a motif this season, isn't it? Like, we keep seeing buildings falling apart around people. And 2 years in, I'm pretty sure that nature will take its course, but I don't think 2 years is how fast buildings start to collapse. I don't know.
I don't know, Stuart. Have you ever seen In a World Without Humans?
We've brought this up before on this show, but no, I haven't, and I don't know. What does that show say?
I don't know. They're pretty bleak in their predictions about how quickly everything would go to the wild. So I don't think this is totally outside of that timeline, though I do agree with you, because I don't know that you would see, and the example I give is that, like, here in New York, we have a place called Governor's Island. There's a lot of buildings there, and granted, it's not like they've just been kind of left, although I think water and stuff has been turned off, so maybe that's the factor, is the water erosion and stuff like that. But basically, they're all still standing there. There's nothing wrong with them. Nothing's like, there's like a couple that might be falling in, but those are like old buildings, so I just don't think that this would, especially a hospital.
Yeah,
I don't know that this would be falling apart in quite the way that we're seeing here, but hey, this is what they're doing. So
this is what
anyhow,
they're doing. They make it into the generator room and they find a note left by Al, and some evidence that she's been stabbing her way out of there. This is a part of the show that made me laugh out loud, which I can't even count on like one hand how many times that's happened in the Walking Dead franchise. But Mo Collins reads this note as Sarah, because apparently Denai Garcia first picks it up as Luciana, and she's like, she left a note, but she doesn't read it, and then Sarah runs over and picks it up and reads it. But when she says, and if you find that C word,
yeah, that was pretty funny.
and then she goes, she didn't say C word, she went for the whole quesadilla. I could not stop laughing. That was really funny.
Yep, I left. Her delivery was pretty
amazing delivery there. Of course, they on Talking Dead were more obsessed with the fact that she also got to say the line, "You're a grade A jagoff, and who fills rooms with philosophical farts," when she's talking to Jimbo on the roof.
Yep.
Which is also a pretty good line, but I didn't think it worked nearly as well as the C word thing.
Yep,
but.
Definitely. So this group, there's a whole thing where they feel like they can get downstairs, and Morgan's like, of course I have to stay behind, and I have to make sure you guys get out. It's my fault. And, there's this whole thing where they're wasting time and lights start flickering.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous, but hey, that's what they're going to do here. So he goes back up to the roof with a walker corpse, and his idea to distract them is to throw it down on one of the cars whose battery is miraculously not dead. And his aim is impeccable with a body throwing it from a roof really far.
Kind of hoping that he would have missed with the first one and he'd have to go and get another one, because what are the...
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, that didn't really look like much of a body. It looked a lot like just a... Do you see how he got it so far? Like, the separation from the roof down to the street was probably like 20 feet.
And I also feel like it might have fallen apart. I don't know. But, and we've got the ongoing sort of dialogue between him and Jim, and Jim just being himself.
Well, Jim, I think even by this point, or maybe it was a little bit later, that he at least starts to turn and start saying like, hey, you know, can you do me a favor and kill me when I become a zombie? Like it's
Yep.
like the biggest version of reconciliation he's willing to offer Morgan
Right.
after being such a turd.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And we should also mention that he refused to give his beer recipe. He refused to share it. Hence the line that you mentioned before. So
and he refuses in such a, he's like, you know what would make me happy is if you turned and walked away, and if you fell and killed yourself, like
yeah,
that would just be a bonus. I'm like, wow,
yeah,
that's he's a real jerk. And so I had in my head I knew I recognized this actor who plays Jimbo. I'm not remembering his name. It's like Evan something, and he was Cole on 12 Monkeys, the TV show.
Oh, all right, fair.
So, like, he's a lead in that show, and so it's a bummer that he comes on to Fear the Walking Dead, has a really limited arc. But, oh yeah, spoiler alert, he's dead.
Yeah, well, I think everybody saw that coming, given the bite.
Given the bite, yes. What's his name? Evan, nope. Aaron Stanford.
Yeah, and part of what I wondered during this episode is what Maggie Grace had to do during this episode, where they have her totally AWOL from the group.
Oh, you mean like what? She had another job or something?
You may maybe, but because that's usually, this just seemed a little too convenient and strange that she doesn't make any appearance at all during this episode. But
Yeah.
and we've got the whole group coming together in a very big kumbaya moment where Morgan's like, okay, now I'm gonna be stuck on the roof, and then you have everybody on the walkie-talkies being like, not so fast, Morgan, we're gonna save you, and just doing crazy stuff. Like June looking at the wall of walkers coming towards her when Morgan
Yeah.
when he had to put that like, it was just ridiculous.
She could have had that conversation from inside the ambulance, not like
like further away. No need to like be there looking at the wall of walkers walking toward you. So
they're also not gone super long. Like they
No.
leave, and Morgan has a short conversation with Jim, and then suddenly they're all back. Like they've all
it's like
reunited.
minutes, and they're all like chiming in on the walkies, being like, Morgan. It just was a little too much for me. I just was like, oh my god, if another person chimes in on the walkie, and it's like they have every single person do it.
Yeah.
So I think the only person they don't have do it is Charlie, maybe.
Charlie and maybe Wendell. I don't know if Wendell
Yeah.
gets a turn.
Yeah, I don't think he gets a turn, but
Honestly, enough people got a turn. They do some cool stuff with this fire truck. They have to explain it like the engine's dead, but the generator for the ladder still works great. They're like, okay, guys, that sounds kind of convenient, but that's cool.
Yeah.
And it's parked right next to the hospital. That's great.
yeah.
But they do some cool stunts, and a walker walks right through a
Glass.
window of glass in a very weird way.
That was strange.
And John Dory makes a shot that's pretty inconceivable because it's like probably 4 or 5 stories.
Yep.
But hey, I'm totally all in with him being the best shot in the Zombocalypse.
And then, of course, we've got the Jim moment where he becomes a bit of a hero. He shares his beer recipe and he sacrifices himself to get the group out of there. And okay, but can we talk about this? So Morgan does his death-defying leap onto the little bucket
Yep.
with the rescue truck. All of this is a bit inconceivable, but okay. And the thing is that you've got all these people doing this plan and you have nobody in the SWAT truck. You're putting everybody into this big rescue truck.
Yeah.
When you know that things like, why on earth would you do this? And this is, to your point, this is a couple of years in. All of these people know better than to do this. From a tactical.
Do you mean
like,
leaving the filthy woman alone, or do you mean like?
I mean,
it's a safer
both.
place to be than inside the fire truck or on its
Well,
roof.
not just that, but maybe if this happens, you've got like you have got 2 groups in 2 different vehicles so that you're able to distract them because the SWAT truck actually has gas.
Yeah.
So you could distract the zombies or the walkers, and also the filthy woman should never be left alone in the SWAT truck. That's insane. And also, why didn't she just take the SWAT truck?
Hopefully they took the
right?
keys with them this time.
Well, maybe, but she doesn't seem like somebody who couldn't figure out how to hotwire something. But
Yeah, and you can totally drive through crowds of zombies with that thing.
that's what I'm saying. So why on earth would you make this? And what what I also don't understand is what were Luciana and Alicia and June all doing kind of out there just randomly getting attacked by walkers for no reason. That doesn't make sense either. So
And where they were also, it wasn't like right next to the fire truck. They were off quite a distance, which is, I suppose, how the showrunners are like, this is how the filthy woman's going to get away. But then we're left with the same question: like,
it doesn't make sense.
Why are they all the way over there? Because there's clearly zombies coming from every direction. They don't need to all be together in one place. That's like 30 feet away. So yes, very strange. It seems just
a little too convenient.
Designed to let the filthy woman escape. like maybe it's conspiracy. And so very predictably Jim does set off another car alarm. Good use of that. Hopefully they don't use it anymore. Twice is enough, I think.
Agreed.
Otherwise we get into the smearing of the guts thing happening again.
I kind of thought that's how they were going to get out of the hospital, but I was like, oh, okay. Well,
that's off the books. You
can't
do that anymore on the show. They decided.
I know. But
Father Gabriel was the one who made that off limits.
Yeah, but yeah.
So they
are all reunited.
All reunited. Filthy woman apparently was listening to the radio conversation about the beer because she writes down the recipe on Jim's face. And then he reanimates, which I don't know that his head would have been intact after falling 5 or 6 floors. Don't you think? Like, that would be a tough reanimation.
Yeah. I don't know that he would have reanimated. I think his head would have been too damaged.
Yeah, I would think so too. But that's not how it works, and she gets to try and recreate her chain. And apparently she's feeling a lot better than she was when she was bleeding out and dying, which is a giant bummer.
Mm-hmm.
And then the end of the episode is basically them trying to figure out what to call Jim's beer, assuming that they can actually make it. And
which seems unlikely based upon how he delivered that recipe, but hey, that might just be me.
They come up with a really dumb name.
Yes.
That they at least recognize as dumb, and that it's so dumb that Jim would hate it, and so that's what makes them like it, which I think is actually pretty good.
That actually is kind of funny.
Jim was a giant D-bag, so yes, great. However, we have 1 episode left to go in this season. If Filthy Woman is still alive by the end of it, I'm going to be pretty demoralized.
Well, and how things are going with everybody kumbayaing around Morgan, it feels like Morgan's going to bite it, no?
Yeah, and also, like, their direction right now is Alexandria. And does that mean that this show, if, depending on how this episode goes, and it's going to be aired tonight on September 30th, if they all go to Alexandria, does that mean that Fear the Walking Dead is over and we just have one Walking Dead show again?
Maybe. Could be. So we'll see. I guess we'll learn about that tonight.
Here we go. So next time we're going to talk about this episode, I Lose Myself. And then there's plenty of other good stuff out there for us to review. So don't fret, gentle listener. We'll have things like It Stains the Sand Red. Do you remember seeing that trailer a million years ago? About like a hooker from Las Vegas or something? I don't know what it was about, but either way, we got that. We've got Patient Zero, I'm sure, is available somewhere by now because it was coming up soon.
It is. There's quite a few things that just popped up just in time for Halloween. Not shocking.
Yep.
Not shocking that happens, but there's like a ton of stuff on Amazon. And on Netflix, so we'll have a lot of stuff to talk about.
The most recent season of Walking Dead just came on Netflix, I think.
Yep.
So we also got that.
Do that.
Well, I don't want to,
immediately jump into it. We can break it up a little.
Yeah, we're gonna mix it up. Either way, we got plenty of good stuff coming into the happy zombie season of October, and so hopefully you'll join us again next time. In the meantime, you can get a hold of us at reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com. Our show notes and archived shows going back to the very beginning are on reanimatedpodcast.com, and we're on Twitter at reanimatedpcast.
So until next time, ciao.
Thanks for listening, and bye-bye.